That is when you write to the child you are, when you find that one within, and then you sit as the child and read back your words to yourself as the child and put yourself in that position. You know, this is almost like you're playing a role of duality, but it's the self, the single self. It's the self talking to the self beholding the self as you write. You will find that when you come up with a very simple statement, that it communicates. But so often when we hear the simple statement, when it comes to us as simplicity, we are prone to say, well, there's nothing there. It's just, it couldn't be this easy. It's too simple. This is just naive. This is the height of, and so we rush on. Well, now when someone writes and says, well, something is too easy, I say, well, then read it 12 times. There is a saying in the East, as you know, or maybe it's in the Middle East. It says, nothing has been studied once until it's been read 12 times. And this is certainly true of the tape that one listens to. It has never been listened to once until it's been listened to a dozen times. But it shouldn't be all listened to at one time. There are times when you listen to all of it. There are times when you listen to a little bit of it. And there are no rules and regulations about the light, you know. The light isn't bound. The light isn't bound. There is nothing that one has to do or doesn't have to do. And I'm not giving rules of conduct. I'm just saying what has been, in my own experience, helpful at one time or another. It's something you might enjoy trying too. About identification as a race or a nationality or as an ethnic group, I have found for myself that identity, the light, which is the only identity, has nothing to do with ethnic groups, with colors, with nationalities, not even with gender, and yet it is being all there is to that which appears to be race, ethnic groups, color, gender. So I have found for myself what a joy it is to identify as awareness itself, which does not consider itself male or female, black or white, red or anything else, educated or not educated. Awareness is what awareness is. Now, awareness includes all genders. Where have we ever heard of a German? Where have we ever heard of a Jew? Where have we ever heard of the East or the West? Except within this single awareness itself. Awareness is all there is to all gender. Now, of course, this does not mean that we don't, because the body would appear to be male or female, that we don't perform or do or act as would appear. But I have reference now to as one perceives oneself. You simply perceive yourself as awareness itself, which is all there is to all genders, which is all there is to all races, which is all there is to all colors. You see, to identify oneself as a color, visualize, if you will, light. Because you are light, and you can certainly visualize the light that you are. Everything you see is light. There is a grand body of light, being this very awareness that is aware. Visualize light, if you will, a great beam of light. See light, and then see this thing running through a prism. See light going through a prism, and you'll see, of course, that it's broken down into its color. All right, now suppose you identify and say that you are this light. Because light's all. There is nothing but light. God is all. There is nothing but God. Now suppose you identify as a color in that spectrum. You say, I'm red. Well, this is to deny your identity as the fullness of light. Why limit oneself to gender, to race, to nationality, to male or female? Or to anything else, rich or poor, smart or dumb, old or young, sharp or anything else. Why limit yourself in any respect? Light, the entirety of being, is the identity that one is. So we quit thinking in terms of gender, we quit thinking in terms of race, nationality. And what a grand release it is, because we do this first for this self here as I. We see this one as I. The one that is aware, we see, well, gee whiz, awareness is who I am. A book was written by a gentleman by the name of Hardy about on having no head. It's a very delightful and funny and instructive and a lot of fun book in which the perception of awareness He sees himself simply as having no head, and he writes a very convincing argument. He says, why, he walks around all the time as awareness itself, but this awareness perceives its hands and feet and everything, but it never sees its head. It only sees its reflections, its infinite appearing. When he looks in the mirror, that's always a reflection. Now, he can touch it, but those are tactile perceptions. He's never seen the head, so the head is the universe. The head is all the trees and the flowers and the birds and the bees and the people and everything that it sees. And this is a means by which he identifies himself as the allness he is. And it's a lot of fun. And it's a good, beautiful concept. It's another Eastern concept. Now, I'm sorry if I have said so much about East or West, because there is really no East or West. There is this singleness being itself. Just recently, we saw a picture of the Earth, didn't we, from the moon. Did anybody see any sort of a line of demarcation that indicated East or West? There is no line of demarcation. As awareness expands, we see that all of these limitations that have been placed as to one being better or first, or more potent, or more direct, or any of the dualisms, any of the polarizations, any of the opposites, we see that as awareness expands, all of those things melt into their nothingness that they've always been. There really isn't any East or West. There is isness, allness, being itself. And that isness or allness about the business of knowing itself, being aware of itself, seeing itself, enjoying itself is this awareness, this awareness, you. And when I say you, I mean I. And when you say you mean I. There's only one I, this identity that being this one will. Now, does that take care of this thing about seeing gender, male and female? And let me tell you, when awareness accepts the view, that is, when we accept the view, our identity as awareness, suddenly you will know why there is the appearance of what's called male and what's called female. We understand it rather than deny it. All of a sudden you know why there is the appearance of anything relative to sex or anything relative to what appears to be the marriage or the processes of marriage or the outcome of human love. All of this becomes clearly apparent, but it is never observable and never can be seen by the one who identifies himself as a gender, as a man or a woman, rather than as one who identifies himself as a woman. I don't ask that you take my word for that. I ask that you see for yourself and do it. Because you can do it. This instant you can perceive and see that from henceforth that awareness, consciousness, life itself is who and what you are, and that you're not a receiver of it. You are not the recipient of life. And this is so. This is so. Do you see that the instant one says, I have been given life, as is taught in all of the, so many of the places, that I have been given life, that one does unwittingly, unconsciously, and consciously, or subconsciously, identify as one who has received it. And he is then the custodian and the container of it, or the possessor of it. Immediately he is identified incorrectly, and he goes down a blind path, like the blind leading the blind, as a possessor, a custodian, and he looks out and tries to rule and regulate, but never, never has he been that recipient. He's only playing the game of it. And can you see that the instant one thinks that he has been given life, he immediately has himself and that which did the giving. He has immediately sprung up and is entangled with a dualism. He has a himself who has received life, and he has a God who gave it to him. And he has no alternative but to have a distance between the two. Furthermore, this has this recipient worshiping a God that does not even exist. I don't mean to sound like an atheist, so you listen carefully and understand. To worship a bestowing God is to worship a concept of God, a misperception of God, an idea of God that is very intellectual, can be very profound, and can do all kinds of things as far as faith goes and as far as hope goes. But there is not a bestowing God. There is just God. Being life. So, when we suddenly let go of this one who is the grand custodian of life, we come home to the identity which is life itself, God itself. And all I can tell you is that it does, in the most amazing and remarkable ways, do things to this here and now tangible experience. It's very simple, but at the ills and the aches and the pains that fall away, at the indecisions that fall away, at the directions that seem to be received, at the newfound feeling of joy, at an expanding ability to see and feel, and to see perfection and beauty where before there seemed to be imperfection and ugliness. I don't ask that you take my word for it. I say that to do it, there is no substitute for the doing. Now, surely the greatest distance, the distances, we're accustomed to these astronomical distances, especially now that we have things moving out to the moon and back and going out and looking at Mars, and we are now acquainted with the size of this great galaxy, but we see that there are an infinite number of galaxies, and we see what a tremendous amount of space there is in what we call what the finite view of infinity as it appears. But I think that the greatest distances, the real distance, the greatest distance in all this universe are not those great stretches of light years between the galaxies that are some sort of a gauge of emptiness, or the measure of a void of the cosmos, or whatever you want to call it. No, that's not the greatest distance. The greatest distance is that distance between our professions of truth, of reality, and our practice of it. This is the distance. This is the distance. The truth has been revealed truly many times, and it only needs to be practiced, put to use with honor.